Pixel art is a trend that's been growing in popularity for the past few years. It harkens back to old 16 and 32-bit gaming platforms like Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo, and it's often accompanied by like a series of aesthetics like cyberpunk, like right here, or sort of Japanese sort of pop and stuff. You'll see a bunch of Japanese stuff in there, variety of things, right? And so it's like any other sort of medium or any other sort of style or technique. It can be applied to a variety of different things here. What we're going to be doing is creating it with Adobe Illustrator, but there's actually a lot of different programs you can use for it. I think most of these things are done with a special program, usually with Photoshop or this program here, which is called Ace Sprite or ASE Sprite. So what we'll do today is we'll use Adobe Illustrator to create this sort of image that looks like it's a series of pixels on a grid. So remember, like all raster images are just limited to the number of pixels they have across and up and down. In this case, we're using a vector program which will allow us to infinitely resize this little pixel art that we did. So let's go ahead and create a new project. And this project I'm going to be creating right now is going to be 500 by 500 pixels. And I'm going to just make sure, just put down that it's the RGB color mode for now. Just make sure that that's selected, and that's just going to come in handy later on when you're posting things online and stuff, right? So if you want to post something that you made online, you'll want to check that it's RGB color mode. That'll just make everything easier. Anyways, let's go ahead and press create. And this is a small canvas. It's only 500 pixels, wide and tall. But we're going to resize it, once we get done with all this. So let me just real quick make sure we're looking at the same thing. I'm going to click on Window and then Workspace and make sure I have Essentials checked here. And then I'll press Reset Essentials. That way we're all kind of looking at the same thing. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to make sure that I can find my line segment tool. If you can't find that, then what you'll want to do is you'll click on the Edit Toolbar, three dots down there, and then click on this little drop-down menu and then choose Advanced. Once you have that selected, it should be pretty simple to find your line segment tool. It's right here underneath the text tool. If you hold that button down, you'll find your rectangular grid tool. So this is where we're going to create our grid. Our grid is going to be representing all of our pixels, even though we're not working with pixels, we're working with vectors. This is the sort of method of doing this, right? So click once, and then make sure that your rectangular, that your grid is going to be 500 by 500 pixels, and then we're going to make the dividers 50 by 50. Make sure that fill grid is not checked right here, and then press OK, and then just center this to the artboard. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the stroke altogether, because you can still see the lines of the grid even with the stroke gone. All right, so in order to use this as a effective sort of canvas to paint on, we're going to be using this tool called the Live Bucket Tool, or the Live Paint Bucket Tool, which is found underneath your shape builder tool. So if you don't have your shape builder tool selected, if you don't see this, if you find the little shape builder tool, which is Shift M on the keyboard, hold the mouse button down there, you can find your live paint bucket. So in order to use the live paint bucket tool, we need to make sure that this is going to be a live paint object. Now, sometimes if you see it here, I'm hovering over this, and if I click on this, it'll probably click to make a live paint group. If you don't see that option popping up here, you can go over here to Object and say Live Paint and press Make, and now it's a live paint object. I don't have that same option anymore. So now that we have our rectangular grid converted to a live paint group, we can start creating our palette. Now let's create something very simple and something that we can kind of use later on. We're going to start off with something simple, and then we're going to build up in complexity as we go through. So let's start off with a pencil, and then we'll move on to some other school supplies, and we'll put them all together in a final little composition. So I'm going to start off just by creating my palette. I'm going to put two rectangles side by side over here. I'm going to turn one pink, and then I'll just duplicate this by holding on the Alt key and dragging it over, and I'll make this a little bit darker. All right, so with that done, I'll just grab these two blocks and I'll just pull them straight down, and I'll just make this be this side will be my light side, and this side will be my shadow side. And I'll click on the light side one, and I'll change this to a light gray. I can just use my swatches here, and then I'll change the other one to a darker gray, slightly darker. Okay, there we go. And then down here, I'll pull these down one more. In this case, I'll actually add another one, so I'll put 3 here. So Alt, drag that over. And I'll find like a yellowish color, just your classic yellow color. And then I'll make this one the same color. Actually, I'll make them both the same color here. So just eye on the keyboard and sample that. And then I'll make one slightly darker by just pulling down my K value here, or my brightness value. And I'll make another one slightly darker as well. And then we'll make the wood, the visible wood here by clicking, maybe on this brown color, and then choosing a darker brown color. Your pre-made swatches are pretty Pretty handy here. And then we'll just grab these guys and pull these guys down one more time, and we'll make the point by having it be, say for instance, like very dark gray, and then even darker gray, like noticeably darker, like so. Maybe not quite that dark. There you go, that's good. Once we have our palette created, we have our colors that we want to use created, we can go ahead and start filling in our pixels. So the easiest way of creating this little pencil here is to kind of go back and forth between your Live Paint Bucket tool, okay, on the keyboard, and your Eyedropper tool. Now, there's a shortcut for the Eyedropper tool, which is holding down the Alt key with the Paint tool selected. So you hold down the Alt key, you can just click once on whatever color you want, and we'll start off with the pink here. And I'll just build this little eraser, for instance. I'll make it be like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 across, and then just add another 7 down there, and then maybe add a little eraser section right there. And double click on the inside to, get rid of any, empty spaces there. I'll just alt click on the dark side here, and I'll just fill in the rest of like 1/2 of this as our dark side. And we have this little kind of closed in space. You can just double click, and it'll become the dark side there. Right? Alt click on your gray, and then we'll just drag this down, maybe like 4 or so deep, and then just double click. Alt click on the gray, the dark gray, and then make this be the inside there. So with that done, we can click on, say for instance, the lighter side, and I'll put like maybe 1, 2 here, and then alt click here, and I'll put like maybe 1, 2, 3 here, and then alt click, and then just 1, 2 there as well. And then we can make our pencil kind of extend downward just by dragging this down, and then just click maybe 1 up from it. I'm gonna make it a little bit longer here. Then 1 up from it, and just hold this up. Oh, it's okay. So now watch this. I'm going to show you how to erase these things. To erase these things, all you have to do is just switch out your stroke and your fill. Swap stroke and fill, and you just click this little button here, and then when you drag this down, it'll make that disappear. You can hold down Shift and X to make that happen. I'll hold down the Alt key and sample this color right here, and I'll just maybe add in like another click here, and a click there, and a click here, and then we can just drag this straight down, and then double click on the inside here, alt click on the darker yellow, and oops, undo that. Just drag this straight down, click once, drag this straight up. There we go. Now we've got our little dark pencil side there, and then we can get our wood, alt click here, and we can just drag this straight down. We can even we can kind of make some decisions here. If I want to make this just be a blunt pencil tip, obviously I could do this like 1-to-1 like this. I don't think I want to make it that blunt, so I'll probably just go up 2, and then up 2, and then up 2, and then up 2, like that. So we've got 2, 2, 2, and then 2 right there. And so we can do the same thing here on the other side, mirror that as best we can, and then insert that, and then once again hold down the Alt key and click here, and then we can just drag this straight down, and then double click right there. And then for our point, we can just click once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, and we could even, now we've got a little point there. Okay, so that was pretty simple, right? And so now we can move this whole thing around. We can move this pencil around and stuff. We could rotate it if we wanted to. Turn around like that. I'm going to keep it like this. I'll center it here. If I want to make this a little easier to handle, what I can do is I can go to Object and go to Expand and press OK. And then from there, you can just have this be its own little thing. It's still a series of squares. And when you double click on it to get into isolation mode, keep double clicking on it. Eventually, you'll get to where you just have a bunch of squares that you're messing around with here. So for instance, there, you can kind of take that out. But, obviously that's a different story there. So there you go. So this is your pixelated pencil. You can leave it on the blank background. I'm going to add a background to it. Let's actually, everyone, add a background to it. Let's just grab our rectangle tool and just put a little background here, and we can change it to a different color that's like a little more easy to see in comparison to the rest of this. And there it is. There's that. Cool. I like that a lot. Maybe a little bit lighter. There we go, that's nice. All right, so we'll just export this as a JPEG. Oh, before we do that though, let's make sure we go over here to our artboard, Shift and O, and make sure this is a bit bigger. So we're gonna make this maybe like 1500 by 1500 here. 100 by 1500. And once again, this is a vector image, so all we gotta do, we can just get rid of this, select everything, Shift and Alt, and then drag this outwards until it meets the edge. And now we've got our nice big pixelated pencil here. And I'll center this in the artboard and export this for screens. Make sure it says JPEG 100 and call it Pixel Pencil last name. And then here we go. Export this artboard. Let's see how it looks. And here it is. Looks pretty good. If I get closer to it, let's see a little closer to it, you can kind of see the gaps between them, which is okay. You know, like if you want to get rid of those, you can go in and you can like add strokes to them, but it's not a big deal. All right, so there you go. Cool. All right, so that's the first little project we'll do. We'll do a few more, and then we'll put them all together. All right, can't wait to see you guys produce. See you guys in class.